The sun was hot like fire in the middle of Lagos. You could feel the heat even under the trees. People were rushing around the streets, honking cars, shouting traders, and tired children trying to help their parents sell one thing or another. Among all that noise, Zara walked quietly with a small tray of roasted groundnuts balanced on her head. She was just 19, dressed in a faded yellow wrapper and old sandals, but she held herself like a queen, tall, proud, and unbothered. Her skin glowed under the sun, and her eyes, dark and sharp, were full of something most people had forgotten: hope. Nobody knew that her grandfather used to be the most powerful Oba king in their village before greedy men sold their family out to the city. Nobody knew that Zara's mother was once the only woman in their tribe who could call the rain through prayer and plants. But all of that was gone now, buried, forgotten. And Zara? She was just another poor girl trying to survive. She came to the city with her little sister after their mother died. She sold groundnuts to feed them every single day. Never begged, never complained. Just walked in the heat and trusted God. But on this day, her life would change forever. It happened outside Elite Plaza, the fanciest mall in Lagos. Zara wasn't even planning to go there. She was only trying to deliver nuts to a cleaner who worked inside. As she stepped closer to the glass entrance, she knew security would stare at her like she was dirt. She was used to that. But she didn't expect him. Kalu Omorogbe, the youngest billionaire in West Africa, rich from crypto, tech, and something no one really understood. Dark-skinned, tall, sunglasses always on, and always angry-looking. People called him the Panther behind his back because of how fast and deadly he moved in business. He stepped out of a black Range Rover surrounded by bodyguards. He was shouting on the phone, angry about a deal. He wasn't watching where he was going. And then it happened. Zara's tray brushed against his expensive white shirt. A few nuts fell. Some even hit his feet. She froze. He stopped. His face slowly turned toward her, disgust written all over it. "You again? You useless street rats keep messing up my day," he shouted. She wanted to explain, to say sorry, but he didn't give her the chance. Before anyone could breathe, he grabbed a cold bottle of water from his guard, opened it, and splashed it all over her. People gasped. Phones came out. Cameras were rolling. Zara stood there, soaked, groundnuts scattered everywhere. Her heart burned, not from shame, but from something else, something ancient, something powerful. Kalu smirked and walked off like he'd done nothing. But what he didn't know, what nobody in that crowd knew, was that Zara was not just a poor girl. She carried bloodlines older than Lagos. She was the granddaughter of a spiritual king. Her power wasn't in money, it was in her name. And that day, something inside her awoke. The water dripped from Zara's face to the pavement, mixing with the dust, forming little muddy streaks down her arms. But she didn't flinch, not even a blink. Her lips were tight, eyes locked on Kalu's back as he walked into the mall with his entourage laughing like he had just crushed a bug under his shoes. People around her began to whisper. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in pity. A few even recorded the whole scene, hoping it would go viral. Another funny poor girl moment for the internet. But none of them saw the small twitch in her jaw. None of them felt the wind shift. She slowly bent down, picked up her tray, and gathered the scattered groundnuts one by one, quietly, carefully, like it was a sacred act. Then she stood, still drenched, still silent. But now, something was different. Her back straightened. Her eyes, they weren't just eyes anymore. They were a warning. She walked away from the plaza without a word. Back in her one-room shack in Mushin, her younger sister Ini sat on the floor, fanning herself with an old magazine. When Zara walked in, soaking wet, Ini jumped up. "Zara!" "What happened?" Zara dropped the tray on the ground and sat down slowly. She didn't speak at first, just stared at the wall. "Talk to me now," Ini said, kneeling beside her. "You look like you fought the rain." Zara turned her head. "Kalu Omorogbe," she whispered. Ini's eyes widened. "The billionaire." Zara nodded once. Ini was silent for a while. Then she said carefully, "Zara, forget him. He's not our level. These rich men, they don't see us as people. But Zara's voice came out low and sharp. He poured water on me, like I was nothing. And then it happened. A breeze blew into the room, though the windows were shut. The small mirror on the wall cracked, not shattered, just a thin crack down the middle like lightning frozen in glass. Innie gasped. Zara didn't move. "Mama's gift is waking up," she whispered. For years the girls thought it had skipped them. Their mother had been known across 3 villages. She healed, she prayed, she warned kings of danger before it came. But when she died, nothing had come to Zara. Until now. "What are you going to do?" Innie asked. Zara stood up, her wet wrapper sticking to her legs. "I'm going to remind him who I am." Meanwhile, across the city, Kalu sat in a high-rise apartment, still smirking. He didn't even remember the girl's face. To him, it was just one of many poor insects crawling in his way. He was too busy preparing for the grand launch of his new hotel, Oasis Royal, an event that would bring politicians, celebrities, and even foreign investors under one roof. What he didn't know was that Zara had already made up her mind to be there, but not as a guest, as a storm. She pulled out her mother's old box, hidden under a cloth. Inside were beads, herbs, cowrie shells, and an old cloth with symbols that seemed to move when you stared too long. She touched each item with care, her fingers remembering what her heart had forgotten. Zara wasn't just going to get revenge. She was going to reclaim her power, for her mother, for her bloodline, and for every poor girl who had been stepped on like she was trash. The city didn't know it yet, but it was about to remember her name. The night before the grand hotel launch, the whole city buzzed with gossip. Elite Plaza was lit like Christmas, streets blocked for the event, and the guest list was louder than the DJ, senators, Nollywood stars, foreign investors from Dubai and Cape Town. Everyone wanted to be seen. Everyone wanted a selfie with Kalu Omorogbe, the tech king of Africa. But in a quiet corner of Mushin, far away from the glamour, Zara knelt on a woven mat, surrounded by candles. The room smelled of dried herbs and ancient dust. Her hands moved, steadily mixing ingredients her mother had once used in rituals to cleanse and awaken. Blood of pride, sweat of pain, from mother to daughter, let the power remain. The candlelight flickered wildly. Zara's hands trembled, but her voice stayed calm. Her eyes rolled back for a second, just one moment, and in that moment she saw a flash. Kalu's hotel hall burning, people screaming, his face frozen in fear. Then, the vision vanished. She gasped and fell back, breathing hard. From the corner, Innie rushed to her. "Zara, what did you see?" Zara opened her eyes slowly. "I saw justice and fear." Innie's voice trembled. "You're scaring me, sister." Zara placed her palm gently on Innie's chest. "You don't have to be scared, not if you trust me. Not if you believe Mama didn't leave us with nothing." The next day arrived fast. The sun barely rose before the streets were filled with banners, flashing screens and blaring music announcing the Oasis Royal Hotel's grand opening. Kalu stood at the rooftop, watching the city from above like he owned it. Gold chains around his neck, diamond on his wrist, and a wicked smirk that said untouchable. He had no idea Zara was already inside the hotel. She didn't need an invite. She walked in with the staff, dressed in a cleaner's uniform, face calm, eyes sharp. No one noticed her. The rich rarely looked at the workers cleaning up after them. Her pockets were filled not with weapons, but with powder and ash, with beads wrapped in red string, with stones her mother called truth callers. Every step she took inside the hotel was a prayer. Every prayer was a strike. She moved through the crowd like smoke, touching corners, whispering old Igbo chants under her breath. She stopped at the main event hall, where the media stood ready. Where Kalu would soon give his speech about giving back to the people, Zara stood near the podium. She slipped a small sachet under it, filled with powdered kola nut, bitter leaf, and something even older, something spiritual. Then she stepped back, blending into the background. When Kalu finally walked onto the stage, applause roared. Cameras flashed, champagne glasses clinked. His voice boomed into the mic, confident as always. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future." But as he kept speaking, His voice began to shake. Something in the room shifted. Hot air blew through the hall. The lights flickered once, then twice. Then the large chandelier above him started to sway, though there was no wind. People looked around, uneasy. Kalu stopped mid-sentence, clearing his throat. "Let's keep the light steady, please. Technical issue." Then it happened. The speakers popped. A loud crack sounded, and suddenly the mic in Kalu's hand burned hot, forcing him to drop it. Smoke rose from his palm. Guests jumped back. Confusion filled the air. Zara stood in the back, still as stone, her eyes fixed on him. Kalu looked around, shaken. For the first time in a long time, he felt fear, and Zara whispered under her breath, "Now you'll remember the girl you humiliated." But this was just the beginning. She had more than fear planned for him. She had ruin. The panic at the hotel event settled after a while. The lights came back. The staff blamed it on faulty wiring. Kalu brushed it off like it was nothing, just a small technical error. But deep inside, something was bothering him. That burning mic, the smoke, the cold breeze that swept through the hall. None of it made sense. He didn't know what it was. But for the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't in control. The party continued. Drinks poured. Laughter returned. But Kalu's smile, it was fake now. He kept checking over his shoulder, heart tapping strange beats in his chest. By midnight, the guests started to leave. Kalu went up to the penthouse where his private lounge waited, champagne chilled, soft jazz playing, and his 2 bodyguards at the door. But when he stepped in, the air in the room was heavy. He couldn't explain it, but something felt off. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He frowned and picked up. "Hello?" No one answered. Then a voice, soft, calm, and familiar. "Do you remember the girl with the groundnuts?" His heart dropped. "Who is this?" he barked. "Your shadow," the voice whispered, and the call cut. He threw the phone across the room. Down in Mushin, Zara sat in the dark, a small calabash bowl in front of her, glowing faintly. She wasn't doing this out of hatred. No, this wasn't for her ego. It was about balance, justice. Her mother once told her, "The river doesn't chase anyone, but if you step into it without respect, it will drown you." And Kalu? He had stepped in with boots. Now he'd drown. Zara's next move was simple. Reveal his true face. You see, Kalu Omorogbe was a billionaire, yes, but not a clean one. Underneath his empire were lies, fraud, and betrayals stacked like cards. And Zara, she had begun uncovering them. Piece by piece. She had a friend, Ugo, a smart, quiet guy who once studied computer science but dropped out when his scholarship was stolen by a corrupt dean. He owed Zara's mother a life debt. So when Zara asked him to dig into Kalu's secrets, he didn't hesitate. That same night, Ugo sent her a file. Offshore accounts, fake contracts, leaked emails, evidence that could burn Kalu's empire to ash. Zara smiled. Good. The next morning, Kalu woke up to chaos. His name was trending, but not for the hotel launch, non pasta. Kalu exposed, Omo corruption, Doncast. Tech billionaire or thief. Screenshots from the documents Ugo leaked were everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, even WhatsApp. Statuses in villages. His photo with foreign investors, contracts with shell companies, deals with bribed officials, it all exploded online. He called his PR team, shouted at his lawyers, smashed another phone. Shut it down. Take it down. So everyone, but it was too late. Sponsors began to pull out, shareholders panicked, 2 banks froze his accounts. One news anchor even called him a well-dressed fraud in Gucci shoes. He was losing grip fast, and the worst part? He still didn't know who was behind it all. In the shadows, Zara watched quietly, not laughing, not celebrating, just watching, because this wasn't revenge. This was only justice's first slap. The second slap would hit much deeper. It would be personal. Kalu didn't leave his penthouse for 2 full days. He shut off his phone, locked the doors, and sat in silence with his thoughts and regret slowly chewing him from the inside. The media had turned on him. Deals were being cancelled. His lawyer told him investigations were coming. Some of his own business partners stopped answering his calls. He didn't even care about the money anymore. It was the fear of the unknown enemy, someone who knew too much and moved too quietly. He tried to think back. Who did he step on? Who would hate him enough to burn everything down like this? And then, a flash. The street girl. The one with the ground nuts. The one he threw water on. He scoffed. No way, he said to himself. She's just poor. But the seed had been planted. Meanwhile, Zara was preparing the final move. She had already destroyed his reputation. Now it was time to bring the truth out, not to just punish Kalu, but to wake the people. She went to a small radio station in Surulere, low budget but respected. Her friend, Mama Ijoma, hosted a popular morning talk show called Lagos Loud when Zara stepped into the studio. Mama Ijoma looked her up and down, confused. "Zara, my dear, what are you doing here?" Zara sat, opened her bag, and placed the file on the table. "What's this?" "Evidence. Proof." "Truth," Zara said calmly. "I want the world to know what this man really is." Mama Ijoma flipped through the documents, her eyes widening. Where did you get all this?" "I was just a poor girl to him," Zara said, voice steady. "But my mother taught me that even a silent drum can shake the whole village." The next morning, that radio show aired across Lagos. Zara's voice came through every speaker, calm and clear, telling her story. She spoke about the water incident, yes, but more than that, she talked about how men like Kalu believed money could wash away shame, silence truth, and erase the poor like dust. She didn't even mention his name at first. She let the documents speak. Corrupt land grabs, bribery, tax evasion, silence payments. Mama Ijoma let it all flow. By noon, the anti-corruption agency made a public statement. An investigation was officially opened. People were now not just gossiping, they were marching. Protesters gathered outside Kalu's company headquarters chanting, "Thief Billionaire" and "Street Girl Power." A hashtag was born. With Zara the voice, and for the first time in years, poor girls in the markets, hawkers on the road, cleaners in rich hotels, they lifted their heads higher. Because one of their own had stood up. Kalu watched it all from his TV. His face pale, he didn't speak. He didn't move. Until his lawyer called, "There's a warrant. You have 24 hours to respond, they're coming for you." And just as he dropped the phone, a knock at the door. Soft, then firm, he opened it. And there she stood. Zara, no longer in her wrapper, no longer holding nuts. She wore a plain black dress. Hair tied, beads on her wrist glowing faintly under the light. Kalu's lips parted. "You?" Zara stepped inside without permission, like she owned the place. "I didn't come here for revenge," she said. "I came to remind you, power doesn't come from money. It comes from the people you thought were invisible." "You don't scare me," he muttered, though his voice shook. She leaned closer. "You should be scared, but not of me. Be scared of the truth." Then she turned and left him standing there empty, alone, falling. 3 days later, the headlines changed from whispers to thunder. Billionaire Kalu Omorogbe arrested in multi-million naira fraud scandal. Young woman's testimony sparks nationwide investigation. Zara, the girl who shook the system. The police came early in the morning. Not quietly, not privately. They stormed Kalu's estate with cameras rolling, officers shouting and reporters waiting outside the gates like vultures circling a corpse. Kalu didn't fight. He didn't even shout. He just stared blankly ahead, his hands cuffed, his suit wrinkled, his face stripped of pride. The same man who once stood like a god at gala nights was now pushed into the back of a police van like every other criminal. And somewhere in Mushin, the whole compound gathered around a neighbor's tiny TV to watch. Zara stood in the back, arms folded, silent. Her sister Inni hugged her from the side, eyes filled with tears. "You did it, Zara." But Zara just nodded, her face calm. "It wasn't just for me," she said softly. "It was for Mama, for you, for every girl that gets laughed at, stepped on, forgotten." She turned and walked out into the street, where young girls playing with tires suddenly stopped and smiled at her. A little one, no more than 10, ran up to her. Auntie Zara, can I be like you when I grow up? Zara bent down, touched the girl's cheek gently and smiled. You can be even stronger. Across the city, the winds were changing. Kalu's empire was being torn down piece by piece. His companies lost contracts. Some of his allies were under investigation. And for once, people were naming and shaming the powerful. Not just because they were angry, but because they had seen one of their own. A girl with no wealth, no connections, just courage. Break a man they thought untouchable. Zara didn't disappear after that. No, she rose. With help from Ugo and Mama Ijoma, she started a small foundation called Voice of the Groundnut Girls, a platform to help young women from poor communities speak, build and fight back against abuse and injustice. Donations poured in. Volunteers came. And soon, people across West Africa were repeating her name. Zara, not as a victim, but as a voice. And as for Kalu, he sat in a prison cell, staring at the cracked wall, the same way Zara once stared at the wall of her tiny room. Except he had no hope, no voice, no one to fight for him, only memories, and among all of them one burned the most. That moment when he threw water on a girl he thought was nothing. But she wasn't nothing. She was everything he could never buy.